hopefully have some clearer air today, and makes for a whole lot easier breathing. I'm also very thankful this morning because my grandson, as you all know, had surgery yesterday. The surgery went off without a hitch. He is cancer free. We never really believed he had cancer, but there was always that possibility hanging over our head. The pathology came back. The cyst has nothing to do with cancer, and he is well on his path to healing. And David, we all love you. Thank you all so much for your good wishes and for prayers for David's speedy recovery. So let's see. This morning we have good morning, Michelle. It's good to see you out there. And there's my daughter, Jennifer. Good morning, Jennifer. So you just heard me talking about David. Please give him a big hug and a kiss for all of us, from all of us. Good morning, Mimi. It's good to see you. Jessica, good morning. Jessica Zaya. Good morning. That you're new to us. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. So I have a lot of information for everyone this morning. In fact, I'm sitting here thinking, how am I going to get this all in a decent amount of time? So let's try to push through the information. If you are like me, you will find some of this information this morning disturbing, but also hopeful. How's that for a prelude, right? So before we get into some of the more disturbing yet hopeful information, let's look at what's going on in the sky. So as we know, yesterday evening, about 9:09 p.m. West Coast time, just a little after midnight for you all on the East Coast, the sun moved out of Leo and into Virgo. So now we're all in the time of minding the details, right? The practical organization of our lives and the application of seeing those little pieces, the pieces that sometimes we don't want to look at, right? Details sometimes feel like drudgery, but in the details, sometimes, what do they say? The devil's in the details, right? Sometimes it's in the details that we can see the pathway forward to wholeness, which is what Virgo energy is all about, purifying with an eye to wholeness and organizing with an eye to purification. So here we have a time period where we are not only purifying our minds, but our bodies as well. And, all of the things in the physical world. This is a great time to tend to your body's health, to the health of your environment, to take a very clear look at what toxins you may be ingesting that you're taking in. And then we have this grand opportunity to really see things in a holistically defined way, as opposed to there are the details, but if we can also step back and see the bigger picture, we can see how all of the pieces fit together. And in no small measure, that is what we're going to be doing later on this morning as we dig into the next gate of the fear, or next fear gate on the spleen, gate 57. So let's finish up with the astrology here first. The sun today is at the focal point of a yod. So I kind of drew this in for you so you could see what a yod looks like. So a yod is an aspect in astrology that comes with a lot of baggage. It comes with a lot of energy to have to adjust, to have to sacrifice, to have to make changes wherever you've been stuck. So over here's the point of the yod. It's pointing directly at the sun, and at its base, which forms the foundation from which the nozzles being released through the ego energies, the personality energies of the sun, is the planet Chiron in Aries and the south node in Leo. So we have some really interesting energies popping up here, because now that the sun is actually in Virgo, it's in Earth. So we are pointed, the nozzle, if we have passions and things up here in Leo energy, in that fire energy, the way out of that, the way to express it is in the practical, grounded, down to earth ways. So here we also see that in order to move forward, we have to work with the wound, Chiron, and we have to deal with our past, which is the south node. And we have to release those things through love, through forgiveness, through recognition. First of all, I was working with a woman last night, and she was pretty upset with some things that she had discovered about herself. And I was really excited for her because in the awareness, half the battle is over, right? Most of the time we go through our lives without any kind of awareness about what it is that's holding us back, or what it is that stands in our way of being who we really want to be, or from what stands in the way of our having juicy, loving, mature types of relationships. And once we have that awareness, then we can begin to take the steps to correct what is out of alignment. So that awareness is key to being able to become a whole and fully loving individual. Let's see, the moon is in void, of course, this morning. I'm not sure I brought this up yesterday. I think I totally forgot about it in light of everything else we were talking about. But at 7:19 this morning, Pacific Coast time, the moon moved into void. It is void only until 9:55, so don't expect any big movements until after 10 o'clock this morning, West Coast, 12:55 p.m. East Coast time. And at that point, the moon will move out of Capricorn, where it's been for the last few days, and into Aquarius. And Aquarius energy is more about freedom and eccentricity, uniqueness. It brings out sort of the more interesting facets of humanity and of ourselves. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. Good morning, Kristen. Let's see, Jessica Zaya. I've reached out to many people for readings and no one chooses me. All I want to know is if my relationship with my boyfriend, Cody, will last. I'm a Taurus and he is a Gemini. My real name is Gubanko. Okay, well, Jessica, in this particular morning show, we really talk about what's happening in the heavens. We sometimes do readings. And if you want to know if your relationship with your boyfriend, Cody, is going to last, then you are trying to live in the future instead of right here in the now. So right here in the now, what can you do to keep your relationship loving and in a two-way communication, let's say? So instead of asking, how long will it last, or will it last, ask yourself, what can I do in this moment? What can we do as a couple in this moment to ensure that we're always able to communicate with one another and keep our relationship alive? Okay, I hope that it's probably not the answer you're looking for, but there isn't any way to look in your chart and just predict, right? There just isn't any way. I mean, I can predict certain things like energies that might happen or that you are experiencing, but timing like that, then, if I were to say, okay, your relationship's going to last 2 more years, then aren't you kind of being preset up to end that relationship in 2 years? Aren't you looking for the way out 2 years from now? So those aren't the questions we want to ask. We want to ask about, what do I do right here in this moment to strengthen that relationship? And I'll tell you what, little secret, Jessica, it begins with strengthening yourself, your relationship to yourself. All right. So I hope that helps. Anyway, so let's go on here with some other things that are happening this morning. The last aspect that the moon made before it went into void was with Mars. And Mars, of course, is that action principle. He is, what is it? Today's the 23rd. He's 4 days away from changing from retrograde motion back to forward motion. So in that moon's last aspect were maybe the last pieces of the goals, of the dream, of the aspirations that you have, the things that, the plan of action that you could put in play once Mars begins to move forward again. The first connection that the moon makes when it comes out of this void, of course, is with the planet Uranus, which also happens to be the ruling planet of Aquarius, the sign the moon is in. And it comes with a challenge to the planet Uranus, the square. And so there may be some striking ahas that come up, some unexpected details that you have to tend to, or some unexpected things that come into your awareness through after 10 o'clock this morning. And this isn't that it's a negative aspect at all. It's that sometimes there's something in our way and we don't know what it is. And then all of a sudden, poof, we have it. We have that aha. Or we out of the blue see where it is that we've been sort of chained, where we've been stuck in a belief, where we've been stuck in a situation, and we see our pathway forward in clearness. So interesting things, right? That today's kind of an interesting day. I think today is a pivotal sort of day. Pivotal. It even feels like that mirrored in the weather to me here, where we have gone from smoke and haze to more of the low clouds and fog along the coast kind of things that we're used to here. Pivotal, where things are changing and they're in some way morphing away from the way that they've been. And sometimes that's surprising and fun and interesting, and other times it's a little disconcerting and we want to back away from it as if we are a little bit of in a little bit of fear. Jessica, you are so welcome, sweetie. If you need any more guidance, feel free to join us here in the morning. We're talking about a whole host of things, fear related. And of course, fear is the thing that we are needing to address planet-wide. And each of us holds a piece of that, a key of that. Okay, so I'm going to transition now to human design, as today is the first day of the human design week, the new week, with the sun sitting at the gate 59. Let me see if I can show you my little model of, I actually just pulled a chart for the just now. And just now means that I get a look at what the energies are for us collectively. And so you notice there's only the black lines because it's only the conscious line here. There's not a design day for this now moment. But this now moment shows us where we're headed for the week. And you can see that there's a distinct connection now between the spleen and the soul center, or the identity center. Because the planet Venus is sitting at gate 57 here in the spleen, and the gate 10 is the love of self. And so we have this interesting connection here. So for those of you who have an open identity, you suddenly have a defined identity. So those of you who have an open spleen, you suddenly have a defined spleen. And it's defined through the gate of intuition and clarity, and up to the love of the self, getting clarity about who you are, getting clarity about where maybe you are out of alignment with your own values. Now, the sun sitting at gate 59 is right over here, and it's headed this direction. It is distinctly masculine. It is very much the masculine part of the tribal energy. As well, we also have, what is sitting at gate 50? Gate 50 is... sorry, not gate 50, gate 27. Oh yeah, that's Uranus sitting at gate 27, which is distinctly feminine. So we have a nice little balance of the action energies of the feminine, which is nurturing. This is basically the channel of cooking, taking care of, cleaning, caring for, teaching. It's really lovely feminine energy. And over here we have the masculine energy of creative reproduction and of putting out there the actions from the creative sense. So we have both principles in balance. I love that. So let me back up. You can get a better picture of just now what we are looking at. So without knowing your own human design chart, some of that may not make sense. So if you're someone out there who has not gotten your human design chart yet, go to my website, www.living-astrology.com. I'm going to put it up here, www.living-astrology.com. Request your free human design chart. And then you'll have that for our conversations here in the morning. It's completely free, right? What do you have to lose? And you have everything to gain. Okay, so let me hide that for a moment. And so let's talk about then what it is that gate 59 brings us to. In the lowest expression, the shadow, it is the energy of dishonesty. In its gift, it is intimacy. And in its highest expression, it is the energy of transparency. Woohoo! Right? Transparency. We talk a lot about transparency. It seems like we bandy the word around in political scenes, right? Because every politician will tell you they want transparency. And then what do? They immediately go about hiding the facts of their lives, their past, their mistakes, we would believe them so much more if they only shared with us the truth of who they are, which is a human being like all the rest of us, with all of their strengths and weaknesses and all of their mistakes. And we've made them too, right? Some people's mistakes are, more difficult to deal with, perhaps, but we've all made mistakes. And transparency then is one of these things that we can strive to. Now, I want to talk a bit about this gate 59 in a bigger context, because the gate 59, the gate 55, which by the way is where the Earth is sitting today, and the gate 49, three of these gates are in the process of transmuting our DNA. So the very fabric of who we are as human beings is in the process of being transmuted. It is underway, meaning, we're in this process. It's not like it's going to start at some point in the future. It's not like it's already been done. We're in the midst of this transmutation in the genetic lineage that we carry. Gate 59 has been triggering a planetary mutation. So we're not talking about just the mutation in your own personal DNA, but on the planet scale. Gate 55, as we've already talked about at times, and I think one of these days I'm going to do a deep dive through 55, and it may be a couple days worth of just gate 55, is triggering an awakening deep within our DNA. It is the catalyst, if you will, of that transmutation. And it begins with the idea of victimization. The lowest expression in gate 55 is being the victim mind. And every time that you want to blame someone else for your problems, or that you look outside of yourself for the reason why something is happening to you or in your world, you are becoming a victim, as opposed to being responsible for what you're seeing in your own self and for your own world. The gate 49 is the fuel for the revolution that this is creating. So we have two triggers: a planetary mutation, a trigger within your DNA to awaken, and the energy of revolution. So these three are very vital right now in what is taking place throughout the consciousness on this planet. So if we look at 59 a little bit deeper, the shadow of dishonesty, I'm going to give you a quote. This is the disturbing part of the quote. This is the disturbance of the day, if you will. And I was quite disturbed by this, but I love being disturbed. Why? Because it means there's a chord of truth that's being hit. And I'm disturbed because I resonate with it somewhere in my DNA, in my knowingness. I'm resonating with this energy. And here's the quote, and this comes directly from the Gene Keys. Life itself has been holding humans back from raising and realizing its highest potential. Life needs human beings to be afraid of each other in order to fulfill its genetic potential. How disturbing is that? Right? First of all, that life itself has been holding us back as human beings. So what are we struggling for? That's what makes me disturbed. Like, what are we doing? And then life needs human beings to be afraid of each other in order to fulfill its genetic potential. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. And my goal isn't to dig this deep today in 59 or in 55, because I really want to get to gate 57 where Venus is sitting, because that's the fear that we're dealing with. This is what Venus has been bringing us to for the last couple of weeks, and will all the way through till December 17th. So long term, we deal with gate 57 energies. Right now, I want to talk about the 59th shadow of dishonesty. So here we see that fear is based in our aura, not within us. Fear of one another is based in our aura. So when I'm by myself, any fear that's generated is coming up within me. But then when I move into a relationship with someone, and Jessica, for you, if you're still listening out there, this may be of import to you, is that when we are in a relationship, our auras detect that there's fear there in that other, that our fear perhaps that they're being dishonest with us about something, about who they are, or the fear that our own dishonesty is going to be revealed to us in the aura energies. So and the fear in the aura here is really coming to you through your emotional EQ, the EQ part of your Gene Keys. And it was also placed in your field when you were at the moment of conception. So some of these things that we're talking about are things that are imbued within you and are really somewhat out of your control until a certain level of awakening occurs. And that is what we're driving here, right? This is what we're hoping that through these sessions, these morning videos, that this awakens within you. So this fear of one another that's basically in the aura has been the cause of all the social, political, and geographic boundaries that we can come up with, right? Literally, without these boundaries, our genetic diversity would not have been possible. So let me explain this. So, in some ways, our genes are being passed on when, of course, at fertilization, right? The mother's genes and the father's genes are combined to create a new individual with a new set of genes, with a combined set of genetic information. Now, when you have a shallow gene pool, so a small population of people that are all the same, the combination of the genes gets stagnant over time. So what we've needed on the planet in our past were these pools of people that were separate. One, to strengthen the current gene pool, and two, to eventually bump into one another to create a new pool of genetic information. And this is so fascinating because yesterday I happened to get an article. I glimpsed an article on, I think it was in the National Geographic, of a bone that was discovered in a cave, and it was this is somewhere up in Siberia, and it showed that humans, the Neanderthal humans, and another human hominid, they call it hominy, the Devon something or others, I'm not sure that that's the correct word, which was a different breed, if you will, a different strain of human. They interbred. And without that interbreeding, of course, then we would have not had probably the birth of Homo sapiens. So every time, a population strengthens, and when the gene pool begins to get thin, a new population is entered into the picture, and we get new genetic information, a new scrambling of the genes or a new mixing of the genes, and new populations are possible. So everything in evolution serves a purpose. And this is a part of our evolution, that first suspicion of one another, of the other, and that aura that's between us that keeps us kind of in the dishonesty mode, and then becomes an openness as we move out of the fear of dishonesty and into the gift of that particular gate, which is intimacy. When we learn more about one another, when we realize that we are not so different, and we come back together in a new way with the energy, the highest expression then of transparency, where we're not afraid to put it all out there as who we are. So these are the gates that are the sun. The sun is triggering this for us this week. Now, the 55th shadow, where the earth is sitting, let me show you the 55th gate. What did I do with my little? Oh, I put you up here. 55th is on the emotional center, the solar plexus, right here. And it's hanging, right? It hangs. On one side, we have the gate of provocation on the root center. And on the other side, we have the gate of abundance, the birthright of abundance through spirit. Because of our divine connection, we are abundant. But the shadow is victimization. So are you a victim of circumstances, or are you going to take full responsibility for the situation, the circumstances, the condition you find yourself in? I'm going to give us a new way to look at responsibility. Oops. Hello, responsibility. Right? Not just the word responsibility, but if we looked at it as the ability for us to respond and not knee jerk, right? Not automatically settle for that victim energy. And so this week we are awakening to that victim energy more and more, right? We've already talked a lot about victim energy. We've talked a lot about that because Chiron was in Pisces. And while the 7 years or so that Pisces was, or that Chiron was in Pisces, we were becoming very aware of where we were victims, right? We're victims of the political scene. We're victims of our relationships. We're victims of a system that's stacked against us, on and on, right? But where is our responsibility in that? Our responsibility. So gate 55, where the earth is sitting, is really about our ability to become aware of where we are succumbing to victim energy. Anytime that you blame, anytime that you complain, anytime that you're projecting outward the energies of something that has happened to you, you're being a victim, right? And there's also another subtle expression of this, and that's the martyr, right? The martyr. I'm always the one that has to get all the work done. Oh, woe is me. I come home, the dishes are dirty. No one's done the dishes. The house is a mess, blah, blah, blah. Instead of being responsible and putting everybody to work, right? Being responsible. Okay. And that's a minor little thing. We do this in big ways all the time, right? We're the victim of our money or of our lack of money. We're the victim of our lack of opportunities. We're the victim of the people that are in relationship with us. So we are really having to put our big girl and boy panties on and become responsible. All right. Let's see. How are people doing out there? Any comments? So quiet. So quiet. That means you're taking it all in, I'm assuming, right? That's where I'm going to go with this. So the question with the earth this week, is really about, what are we awakening to, right? Are you awakening to being able to see yourself in a different way, in a enlarged format? All right. Now I want to take a look at the gene key 57. The gene key 57 is sitting on the spleen, and it is where Venus is sitting. And for those of you who are new here this morning, we've been taking a look, we've been through the last week, I think, taking a look at the gene keys or the gates on the spleen, because Venus is preparing for her retrograde. And that means that she is spending an extended amount of time in these particular gates. And in fact, her entire retrograde cycle, so from September 2nd all the way until December 17th, when she clears the shadow zone, she is sitting in the fear gates of the spleen. Now, fear is just one expression of the energy in the spleen, by the way. I don't mean to say that, just because you have a spleen or your spleen is defined, that you're defined by fear. But in reality, aren't we a bit defined by fear? Right? The high side of the spleen is that it also rules time. And in the moment that you recognize that fear has a hold of you is the moment that you can choose to let it go, or to release yourself from it, to forgive it. So time in the spleen says that anytime a fear comes up, in that moment, you also have the choice to release it and to move forward fearlessly. That's important, right? It is also the center for health. So we see a connection to fear and health. So the possibility of disease and fear being linked. So thus releasing yourself from fear and doing the work that we're doing here releases you from disease, the problems that show up in the physical being, the body. It's huge ramifications, right? The main energy of the spleen is the energy for intuition. It is instinct. This is body wisdom. This is the oldest center in the body, in the human design. So when you look at a human design chart like this, you see these 9 energy centers, the spleen being this one over here. It is the oldest one that arose in the body, and its purpose was survival. Survival. So the shadow states here are all governed by fears. So in all 64 gene keys, we have a shadow state. And the shadow state is driven by fear. But the ones on the spleen are key, right? Because they become paralysis points. Good morning, Suzanne. We're just getting into the juiciness of gate 57, the fear of intuition, the fear, this shadow of unease. So the shadow states are all governed by fear. So that's why when we look at the shadows, we're really dealing with fear. Mimi makes a good point here. dis-ease. We can experience and see this in ourselves and others. Yes, most definitely. Natasha, good morning. I love the way we dig in so we can dig out of. Now, how come this did not? There we go. I love the way we dig in so we can dig out of these very old patterns, and what freedom I am flying to. Awesome. Which, by the way, in case I didn't mention it, the highest expression of the earth in gate 55 is freedom. Freedom. It is the only gate, by the way, the 55, that both the gift and the siddhi, the highest expression, are both the same. Freedom. So you see that you literally, just by moving out of this victimization, create freedom in your life. That's huge. That's just one little fear there that, we have, this fear that creates victimization. Okay. Anyway, back to 57. 57's the gene key 57 is called a gentle wind. It is part of the ring of matter, which is what we've been talking about. Gate 18 is a part of that. Gate 46, which we haven't talked about, is a part of that. Gate 48, which we talked about over the last couple of days, is a part of that. And then 57. So in this gene key, what we see is that humanity vibrates collectively right now within the fear band frequencies. So if we have frequencies that we are vibrating to collectively, we're in that one band of fear energies. So we are really collectively in the shadow energies. But there are those of, and that's not a blanket, right? But our tendency is to vibrate in that frequency. And that puts enormous pressure on individuals to resonate within that frequency in that fear band. So every time you or I try to rise up out of that fear, out of that unease, out of whatever the shadow energy is, the collective energy of the planet is still in this fear band. So this is something that requires diligence on our parts, right? Diligence. This isn't something that we look at once and boom, it's gone. Eventually it will get there. But diligence is required on our part here because of the pressure that you and I are under every time we try to move from that energy. Good morning, Alex. It's good to see you out there. Welcome. So every time we are doing this work, we are actually helping our collective frequency increase out of the fear bands and up into the love bands, right? That's maybe we should get little bracelets that say love band, right? Because that's where we want to move, is into the energy of love, out of the energy of fear. But because the collective is still so immersed in that fear band, we have to keep diligently working on our individual selves, right? So humans, we're kind of like these tuning forks, right? So have you ever played with tuning forks? When you tune them in, they're vibrating, and soon everything around you, sound causes everything around it to vibrate. And it comes into the same frequency as the tuning fork. So each of us as humans are like a tuning fork. And whatever it is that we're tuned into is what we're going to end up vibrating to. And it takes a lot of work for us to keep moving beyond that, to create what do they call that? A snowball effect in changing that fear band energy into the love band energy. And this fear energy, this collective fear frequency, is imbued in us at conception, right? It's that fear field from childhood that comes from the conditioning field. And, in your human design chart, and this one's not really a fair representation of it because it's really just a moment. Well, it could be if anybody born today, their chart's going to look like this. If they were born here in the last, hour or two. So all you mothers out there who are having babies today, this is what their human design charts look like. They would be projectors. And by the way, there are more and more projectors being born. I see them certainly it used to be, that I would get maybe one projector to 5, 6, 7 manifesting generators and generators in a day. Now I'm getting 3 or 4 projectors to maybe 3 or 4 generators. It's pretty interesting. So the conditioning field, the whole reason I was showing you this is the conditioning, the centers that are open in your chart are where you are the most subjected to conditioning. The centers that are colored in are the ones where you are broadcasting your own energy. And next week, when we go into the centers webinar, we'll talk deeply about that. And what is the difference and how does it express in the world? Next Thursday, by the way, just let me plug that. Next Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, that's 7 p.m. East Coast time, free webinar on the design or human design energy centers. That's what we need, more projectors. Exactly, Suzanne, because projectors are here to lead, guide, and manage the energies of the generators and the manifesting generators. They are all similar to the sitting Buddha. When they are working their energy correctly, people reach out to them so that they can dispense their wisdom. Got it? All right. So the I Ching symbol of the gate 57 is called wind. And when we think of wind, it can be very destructive. It can be gentle. It can be invisible. It's invisible. Unless you're looking at a tree, you don't really see the wind. Air is invisible. It's pervasive, right? When your windows are open, the air coming in pervades the room. It can be brutal and terrifying. Here in the Pacific Northwest, there are times we have some high winds. I'm sure everywhere that you live. Poor Hawaii right now, getting ready to experience the brutality that high winds can bring. And yet, wind can also be soft and refreshing. So when the wind is up, it conveys the lowest expression of the gate, which is unease. So the 57th shadow then is the fear of what might be coming, or the fear of what we don't know. And the question might be, what's in the wind, right? What's in the wind? But because we are no longer, as humans, we're no longer connected to the intuition center. In a way, we have lost that ability to know what's coming, what's in the wind. So, any questions, by the way? Are we doing okay? Good morning, Shauna. Good to see you this morning. I don't see any other questions, so good. I'm going to keep on going. If you have questions, go ahead and write them in the question box. So humans are genetically programmed to fear the future. Why? Because in our early days, if we knew what was coming, if we were in tune with our spleen energy, then we could function with the intuition of fight, flight, freeze, those energies that we think of as survival energies. So in the humans' early days, we functioned through our attunement to our body, to the frequencies that our body was picking up in the spleen. So, for example, if our intuition is telling us fear, that there's danger, our body went into an automatic reaction, whether we needed to run, whether we needed to hide, whether we needed to grab a weapon and be prepared to fight. Our bodies knew what to do in the moment. But modern man now translates these intuitive vibrations coming from the spleen, not through the spleen, which interprets it into what body action need I take, but through reason, through the mind, rather than through the intuition. So I know some of you probably think of your intuition as being something that happens up here, or something that happens in your third eye. Not so. Intuition is a body function. It is your body's fine attunement to what is happening in the field around you. And then the ability of your body to take action based on that frequency energy. So the unease that we feel now it's not operating only in response to the moment survival is needed. It is translated by the mind as a continuous stream of energy. And that energy is anxiety. It enhances the morphogenetic field that all connects us with this energy containing fear, the fear and the anxiety. So every time we succumb to the mind and its projections of fear, we enhance the morphogenetic field around us. Do you want to be part of the solution, or do you want to stay a part of the problem? So every time that you move outside of that, anytime that you realize that you're operating in the future and not in the moment, you're helping that morphogenetic field to rise up. So the mind has become stronger than instinct and intuition and seeks to end this unease through external security. I had to laugh at myself this morning because I closed my front door before the broadcast and locked it. I thought, why am I locking my front door? Well, why? Because I don't know when my back's turned to the door who might be walking through my front door. Security, right? It's okay, right? I'm aware. Awareness is half the battle. I'm aware that my need to lock my front door or to even close my front door is out of a need for security, which is out of a fear or an unease with not knowing what's out there, not trusting my body to alert me to what to do in the moment that there is something to respond to. If fear that, that might be challenging my survival. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. That's pretty small. But this fear, this unease affects us all because my mind was going straight to, well, your back is to the door. You won't see it coming. And you got to lock the front door so you aren't surprised by someone walking in on you. Yikes. So security and protection has become an obsession on this planet. Right? Trump wants to build a wall. The Republicans want to build a wall between us and Mexico. Why? So that people that are rapists and lawbreakers can't come in and murder our citizens. Eye roll here. Insert eye roll, because it is in our face. This need that we have from this sense of unease, this need that we have to secure and protect our borders. It's darn near an obsession with all of us, right? So we're caught in this global web of fear, and we project it outward. We project it outward specifically and symbolically onto money, right? Money. Yesterday we were talking about prosperity and wealth, and I threw out another disturbing thought, right? That, we all have everything we need and just a little more. And that when we're seeking wealth, when we're looking for wealth, that we have to really look at the motivation, because it may be coming from a place of fear of not having enough. And that's a whole nother class in and of itself when we can deal with that. So yeah, Mimi says, indeed, our so-called leaders are ruling by fear, but why? Because they're not responsible. They have no responsibility. They're knee-jerking. They're caught in that global web of fear. And as money, the fear of not having enough money to be secure, yet what every rich person does first off is buy a bigger house, more expensive cars, and you see those ADT signs in their front yard. ADT, a security firm, because now their houses are alarmed and their cars are alarmed, and they have cameras everywhere, every angle to watch what's going on in their house. So ironically, the people that have money aren't any freer than you are without any. Makes you wonder what we're doing, right? How unconscious are we? Yikes. So fear just relocates somewhere else in our psyches, right? So we may have a lot of money, but the fear's just relocated somewhere else. Someone's going to come into my house and take away my toys, or someone's going to come into my house and find my safe and steal my money, get my passwords and steal my, bank account. I mean, we have a lot of security issues on the planet, all born out of fear. Now, I'm not saying don't go out there and have passwords or things like that, but look at what the reasoning is behind it. Someone might steal my identity. Right? Wow. Our ancestors lived moment to moment. They lived in the now, but we live in the mind, projecting fear outward to the future, believing that we can think our way out of the fear. But thinking is that endless loop, right? Thinking just keeps us going round and round into more and more fear. We can't reason our way out of fear. There's no form of thinking that can take away the fear, because the fear is there because of the thinking, right? That goes back to, I think it was Einstein, right? You can't solve a problem from the same level from which it was created. The mind created fear. You cannot solve fear from the mind. You have to get back into your body. You have to get back to your intuition, to your spleen. Whether you have it open or defined, it doesn't matter. You have to go back there and understand that your body in the moment has the ability to respond to what is showing up in the outer world. But we've lost the connection to that. So we have to work that back in. Make sense? So the ramifications of fear, huge effect on the body. Disease from the discordant interference patterns coming in, right? Fear of this, fear of that. And it gets put somewhere in your physical body. And the auric fields of our parents causes fear to pass into us through gestation, even through pregnancy. We experience the fears of our mother. So if mom's worried about money, afraid or in fear of not surviving, that fear is transmitting through you. If some big event happens in the outer world, a hurricane, 9/11 happens, that fear, the collective fear, is also moving into your field. Resolve fear, heal yourself. Resolve fear, we're healing the planet. So there are two expressions that fear takes for us in the way we react to it. One is a repressive way, and the other is the reactive way. And if you want to know where I get a lot of this information comes from, I'm going to just open up my Gene Keys book I'm just going to pick any Gene Key because I can't seem to find it. Here we go. So this is the 59th or 57th Gene Key. And you'll see when you look at the shadow, he delineates for you, right? The repressive nature of the fear or the reactive nature of the fear. And human beings, both of those are reacting to the fear, but just in different ways. So the repressive reaction to fear in the spleen, or this unease, is hesitancy and indecision from the mind suppressing your intuition. The reactive is the complete utter opposite. It is impetuous, quick decisions based on fear that gives you no clarity and creates more chaos and turmoil in your life. So chances are we're expressing at one extreme or another, right? Are we hesitant and indecisive about what to do with our lives because in our mind it's suppressing our intuition, the knowing in the moment of what's correct for us? Or is it the reactive side, which we knee jerk and do something from a space of not having clarity? Clarity is the highest expression in this gate. No intuition, no clarity can create this impetuousness and creates more chaos and turmoil in your life. It's huge. All right. So that brings me to the end. Wow, I'm getting pretty good at ending this right just before 9 o'clock. So any comments, questions, concerns, complaints, knee-jerk reactions to this information? What's going on with everyone out there? I kind of want to take your temperature and see what you're feeling. This is a lot to unpack. And I know that when I was preparing this morning, I felt like one of the questions people might ask, well, what is the point? What is the use then? Why do any of this? Why, if I'm in a morphogenetic field supporting fear, why do any of this at all? Why even work with healing my own fear? Because it's only going to keep coming back, right? Well, the beauty of this kind of a system is that we are evolving. We are evolving. And the more of us that take this energy and run with it, run with the idea of overcoming fear, of releasing ourselves, forgiving ourselves for this in this case, forgetting our intuition, the more we change the field, right? There's a tip over point. At some point, what do they call that? The 100th monkey, where at some point we tip it over and the fear frequency begins to lose its hold on the entire planet. But we have to do the work ourselves first. So yay, though, it seems like it's a hopeless venture because we're in this field that feels like sometimes we can't make any changes in. The only person you can work with is you, right? Is you. So it's worth the effort. It's doing your due diligence. It's recognizing in your own life where you're out of alignment with the fear, or when you're in alignment with fear and out of alignment with your intuition, when you're out of alignment with prosperity, when you're out of alignment with spirit, when you're operating in the shadow. And we're all here together to do just this. This is our work. Healing the shadows is our work. And we all do it. The more and more we come into our own and we start living our life from joy, and we start living the life from our gifts, our specific gifts and our talents, and share from that place. And the less we let go of the mind's hold on the beliefs that we are running in every moment, the more we allow fear to be releasing its hold on this planet. It's true. I feel that viscerally. Actually, I don't even feel that in the spleen. I feel that in the identity center right here, smack dab center of my body, in my soul, right? In my soul, which is the energy center right here, yellow right now, defined for everybody right now, where the 4 love gates reside, right? The love of humanity, the love of self, the love of being here in the moment, in the physical, and the love of spirit. Returning ourselves to our center, to love. That's our job. That's our reason for incarnating. And part of that incarnation was descending or ascending through this fear. And now we have tools, right? We have tools to be able to work with this energy. Natasha says, loving this. Suzanne, yes, what is the use? Well, I hope I answered that one, Suzanne. What is the use? The use is that you have children. Your children may have children. And we want those people to be able to live in a new field, a new frequency, a new energy. And of course they are. All of this is evolving. All I'm really saying is we can do our part now to cause this to move faster. We can do our part now to ensure that before our lives end, that we've left a fearless world for our children and our children's children. That's why, right? That's why. Because you have an energetic field around you. And even though, let's say through pregnancy, you've imbued your children already through a field of fear, that isn't cause for you to stop working on yourself and think there's no use for it. Because you are always in the field with your family and your children and people around you. So the changes that you're making in your aura go out in front of you, go out to the side of you, go out behind you, go out in a 360-degree direction around you and affect everyone that you come into contact with. And that has an effect on them. Of course, they have to have the consciousness to be able to take it and run with it. But eventually that will become the consciousness. Right? That's where we're headed. Okay. Natasha says, the more we are in, wait, hold on, show this. The more we are in, the more we are out. Breathe and trust our knowing. Yeah, absolutely. And being willing is part of this, process as well. You have to be willing to look in those dark places. I think we talked about that a bit in the Gene Key 48, where the well, right? The deepness within, the solutions aren't found here in the mind. They're found in the heart. They're found within you, in your intuition, in your inner self, in the part of you that's connected to spirit, not really in the part of you that's connected to the planet. The planet is still in the fear bands, but within you resides the love bands. So, all right. Well, I will be in Facebook here in a few minutes, and I'll be answering comments there. So if you have a specific comment that you would like to send to me, you can do that. I'm going to put my email out. I keep forgetting to reiterate my email address for specifically people, that have questions about what we're doing here in the morning. that maybe, you don't want to bring up, maybe it's too personal, livingastrology111@gmail.com is my personal email address. So if you have comments, questions, or concerns that you don't want to blast out here on the Facebook page, you can email them to me and I'll be happy to answer your emails. All right, everybody, that's it for me. Tomorrow is Friday. God, I can't believe the weeks just seem to be zipping by. Tomorrow we'll be taking a look at not only the weekend, but we will dive into what does it mean to have intuition and clarity? What does that look like in our template? And I think that's it for tomorrow. I think that's a lot for tomorrow. All right, everybody, take care. Have a blessed day. Mwah! Much love to you all. See you tomorrow.